The brush tool in 3D Coat and 3D Coat Textura works much the same way as the brush in Photoshop. However, it is much more versatile because it allows you to do more than just apply brush strokes to your model. It does this by leveraging the wide variety of different draw modes in the ePanel. Let me demonstrate by going to the upper left corner just above the foreground color here. As soon as you hover in this area, the ePanel will open up, but you can also hit the E key to bring it right to your cursor, and then you can see the different draw modes. We will cover this in greater detail in another video, but suffice it to say that you have different ways to apply a brush. You can do it with shapes, including curves. You can apply it per polygon, and I'll show that later in the video. You can use different types of stamps. But again, you have splines that you can apply a brush stroke along. These are all based on brush pressure. And you can utilize brush alphas the same way you would in Photoshop. The first thing I want to do when using the brush tool is check my different channels that I want to apply as I brush. You can apply depth, color, glossiness or roughness, and metalness all simultaneously, or you can use a combination. Basically, what you do is disable the channels that you don't want to apply. So if you only want to apply color, then you would leave metalness at 0 and then disable glossiness and depth. So let me go ahead and use this first draw mode. When you hover over it, you will notice that it describes how it's affected by brush pressure. It will modulate the radius and depth. The second one will modulate depth and opacity. The third one, radius, depth, and opacity. This particular draw mode is a constant pressure, meaning it remains constant no matter what. And then this is dabs. You have a line mode, kind of a curve. This is sort of a legacy option. Next is a more extensive spline. There's also a very powerful new closed spline mode, as well as different shaped marquees, a couple different stamp draw modes. But again, these are all available within this single tool. Let's now get started on the blank layer. With an opacity of 100%, I will proceed to paint with color and glossiness. Now let's vary our pen pressure as we create a stroke. Starting with light pressure, then pressing down harder as I progress through the stroke. Let's increase the metalness to 100% and see how that looks on the model. I'll hit the delete key in order to remove all the paint information on this layer. And I will uncheck the depth channel so that it is enabled now. You can adjust the depth value here in the toolbar or by right-clicking and dragging up and down with your cursor. Let me show one major difference between the brush and the airbrush. If I set my opacity to something like 22, and if I were to click and continue dragging while holding continuous pressure, I will not see any change in opacity. I will now release pressure from my stylus, and you can see once again that the opacity never changed, no matter how many times I passed over the same area. Of course, you can go back with subsequent strokes and build up opacity and depth that way. Okay, so let me hit the delete key. Now with the airbrush, if I do this, again, opacity at 20%, and I click and drag, it will build up. So lightly, I keep going back over this area, then it will build up. Let me hit the delete key again. I'm going to disable depth. As I pass over it, again, it builds up opacity. Let's explore some other ePanel options, and we will start with the Paint by Polygon mode. I'm going to turn off metalness for now, and I will change my color to something a little brighter. I will now go to the Windows menu under Panels and bring up the Color Swatches panel. Let's hit the W key to toggle wireframe on. You'll notice how 3D Coat highlights the polygon you're hovering over. So I can click and drag to paint just the polygons, and that's it. Let me increase the opacity again. I'll now pick a different color from the color swatches panel. I think you will find from time to time situations where this draw mode is really handy. At this point, I think I'll go ahead and close the color swatches panel. Again, I'll hit the delete key. Yeah, you can use different shape marquees like you would in Photoshop. I'll hit the E key and pick a rectangular lasso selection mode. When I hit the E key, I can adjust the border width so there's not so much softness around the edge if you want it to be nice and crisp. Again, I'll hit the delete key. Next, I want to look at Smart Materials, so I'll go to the activity bar, hover over the Smart Material icon, and select a Smart Material to work with. I can use this little preview window. I can scrub the icon for scale. And then if I see what I like, I can go ahead and paint with a brush. Allow me to first switch to the constant draw mode in the E panel. Let's turn on the channels that we want to enable: depth, color, and glossiness. Let's turn our depth up a bit more. We can make it 200. If I want to isolate the paint to a specific object or a UV island, one way I can do that is to paint in the UV workspace like this. We can use the fill tool as well and just click on the object. That's a very quick way of doing it. But if you want to do this with just the brush tool, there are a number of different ways to isolate it to just the part that you want. If I want to paint on a specific UV map in the viewport, not just in the texture editor, but in the viewport, I can lock all other UV maps from being edited in the Surface Materials panel. So let me undo this for now. I just want to show that with the brush tool, you can actually fill by using a shape marquee. We want to make sure that ignore backfacing is unchecked so that the paint will be applied on the backside as well. You can use something like a freeform lasso and just drag select around your model. It will paint across all UV maps. I'll hit the delete key once again to delete all the paint information on this layer. In order to isolate the object I want to apply paint to, I could also use the Paint Objects panel and just alt-click the visibility icon of the blade, and that will hide everything else. Now, once more, with this Smart Material, I can just drag select. We are not limited to using shape marquees to fill an object in the viewport, but we can also do this in the 2D texture editor as well. You can always dock this to make it much larger if you want, but I think for now this will be okay. I can middle mouse click to pan, right click in an open space, drag left and right to zoom in and out. Now, if you do this inside of a UV island or shell, you will scale your brush, but if you hold down the Alt key, then you can go ahead and zoom in and out anywhere. The last thing I want to demonstrate with the brush tool is using it with the new curves. You can do that by clicking on the Close Spline Draw mode in the E panel. You have two different editing modes: edit the entire spline, edit the points of a curve, and then you have the different creation modes. I'll choose a B-spline. You can right click to change the point type. Now, if I want to run the brush along the curve, I can choose that by right-clicking and choose Brush Along Curve, or I can choose to fill inside the projection. I want to turn this Smart Material off for the moment and fill inside projection. And I'm going to go to the Windows menu under Panels and the Curves tree. I'm going to bring that up. I can bring it up here. I can hide this curve. And that's going to complete this overview of the brush tool in 3D Coat. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.